no, it's just sometimes I feel like it doesn't connect, and then I put the pin in, and it's happy all of a sudden. And I didn't know if that was like
I don't have a pin. I don't have a pin on mine.
I probably should. That's probably it's me being strong. Get rid of the pin. That's all said. It's just sometimes it, I just noticed sometimes it gets happy when I enter the pin. You know, the gremlins are happy. The little mice that are running around and they're making. Yeah, we're talking. Hi, Joe. That's stills only. That's stills only. There's never any video there. I'm like saying that authoritatively. You like that?
You've been here?
You like that?
Yeah.
I can authoritatively tell video to say no.
But they asked Doug like he works here. Hey, is he one of yours? Well, that's what I was about to say. I know, but is one of them yours? AFP. Well, then why they're two? You have one for everybody, then why do you have two? I'm asking how many AFP photographers are there? You, two of you. Okay, just making sure. I'm just keeping track of them. All the other people who aren't here, I'm just keeping track of them.
All the faces like, what?
Why they're two?
Because he's not cool. He's cool as in sharing.
I understand, but who are the two? Why is there one for everybody? Are they both for everybody? They're both for everybody.
One is there.
The wires who are not here are the ones that are here.
Yes.
Not here.
One that didn't travel. One of the broadcast. That one is. What do they do in Europe?
Well, I hate to break it to you, but we're not in Europe.
Oh, we are definitely not in Paris right now.
So I was just wondering. Just keeping track.
My brother's 50th birthday was a few weekends ago, and his wife took him on a surprise trip to Paris. It was like pack a bag for the weekend. And he didn't know where they were going until they got to the airport.
So how did you know it's family?
I'm sure she told him no bathing suit, bring a warm coat.
Bring a sweater.
Yeah.
So he's like, not the Bahamas?
No, he had a blast. He had a blast. She was like, was giving her all kinds of tips ahead of time. They went to that
long as he doesn't block Dan, 'cause you know what happens when you block Dan.
Over here.
All right.
Stay where I am.
As long as he doesn't block me. Already got 2 or 3 AFP guys.
Quoi alors? Je me mets là?
Juste monsieur.
Alors, il faudrait que je sois
Oui. Ah, tu veux changer?
Pas bien.
Yeah, the bigger camera. It's the one that you have to read fast to go inside the oval. There's 2 cameras. One is doing the oval, one is doing the press conference. Oh, I see. That's why. This is your camera. Mr. Mills is the boss. I'm just trying to. Everybody knows that. It's more the lookout or the
Ah oui, il y a des cams.
Which one? Oh, maybe I've seen that. Yeah. Oh,
That's the French pool. Those are the French pool. They're standing in the sun getting
Hi, Doug. Good, good. Alex, hello. Happy Monday. Good morning.
Bah ouais, ouais.
Je pense que je mets tout ça. She's great.
Et tant pis si on n'a pas de jour. Hein. Là, on n'a pas de jour.
passe là-bas en bas.
Non, on les suit eux, t'inquiète.
En bas.
Moi je suis là-bas.
Toi, tu restes avec les rebelles.
Sur
C'est le Ludo de la Maison Blanche.
Ouais, mais pour l'instant, j'ai pas encore pas les cartes.
I'm gonna be in there.
Yeah, we're gonna stay. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just launching.
Getting you.
Yeah. Non, mais toi, au pire, tu vas et nous, on passera par derrière. Ouais, voilà. Ready. Donc pour l'instant, parce que lui va pour la...
Moi, je vais rester là. S'il y a un moindre problème, comme ça, je peux
Nous, on va être
pousser.
là-bas.
Et vous restez là-bas.
Et moi, je te rejoins avec le pied.
Ouais.
Ou tu veux que je peux te laisser le pied?
Laisse-moi le pied. Il est léger. Je préfère rester dans le coin. En étant stable, je les jette pas. Comme ça, je reste derrière.
Hey, Gabby.
You should be able to duck through this way.
Oh, yeah,
Okay, Gabby.
yeah,
Non,
still
non, non.
trying to get in.
Non, mais je préfère le sécuriser comme ça.
Ok.
On va sécuriser comme ça. Oh, c'est for you?
No.
Ah, ok. Il faut que tu restes.
Good?
Okay.
Good.
Is this it for you?
thank you very much. We very much appreciate the attention. Today's a big day in that we had a G7 and President Macron, who's a very special man in my book. We were together, we did it together, and I think a lot of progress has been made. We've had some very good talks with Russia. We've had some very good talks with others, and we're trying to get the war ended with Russia and Ukraine, and I think we've come a long way in a short period of weeks. And the president's been very helpful also. And we're also talking about trade, various trade deals that we will be doing with France, and we'll be discussing a little bit further. Then we'll have a press conference later on. You can ask some questions. We'll be having a press conference in a little while. We're going to have lunch with the entire French staff, and we look forward to it. And again, the relationship's been very special with France and very special with this gentleman on my right. And we look forward to keeping that going for a long period of time. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Thank you. No, thank you. I want to thank Mr. President for his hospitality. We had a good discussion this morning for the G7 here.
Yeah.
And for the third year of this war in Ukraine, and I think our common objective clearly is to build peace, and a solid and long-standing peace. And this is what we will discuss, obviously, because I have great respect for the bravery and the resistance of Ukrainian people. And we do share the objective of peace, but we are very aware of the necessity to have guarantees and a solid peace in order to stabilize the situation. I'm here as a friend because through centuries we've been friends, and we are personal friends, as you mentioned it, because we work very well together. And I think the US and France always stand on the same side, the right side, I would say, of history. Mm-hmm. And this is exactly what is at stake today. And this is a very important moment for Europe as well. And I'm here as well after discussions with all my colleagues to say that Europe is willing to step up, to be a stronger partner, to do more in defense and security for this continent, and as well to be a reliable partner and to be engaged on trade, economy, investment in a lot of topics. So I'm very excited by the discussion we will have, and obviously we will follow up. And I want to thank you again, Mr. President, for your presence for Notre-Dame de Paris. It meant a lot for French people, and I want to thank you for that.
That's the cathedral, and they've done a fantastic job. The president's done a great job in bringing it back. That was a terrible thing, like, what, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Watching that burn was a very horrible sight, and you've done a fantastic job in bringing it back, so I congratulate you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you,
Thank
President.
you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody want to ask a question or two, or is that a foolish question? It looks like we're getting very close. The deal's being worked on, and we're, I think, getting very close to getting an agreement where we get our money back over a period of time. But it also gives us something where I think it's very beneficial to their economy, to them as a country. But you know, we're in for $350 billion. How we got there, I don't know, but that's a lot of money, a lot of money invested, and we had nothing to show for it. And it was the Biden administration's fault. The Europeans are in for about $100 billion, and they do it as in the form of a loan. And the Europeans have been great on this issue. They understood it wasn't fair, and we were able to work something out. But with the Ukrainians, I think I can say that we're very close. Scott's around here someplace, and I think we can say that we're very, hi Scott, I think we're very close. Do you have something to say about that, Scott?
We are very close. The
Good.
1 yard line.
All right.
Mr. President, would any security guarantees for Ukraine?
What?
Would a minerals deal include a security guarantee for Ukraine?
Well, it'll be, Europe is going to make sure that nothing happens. I don't think it's going to be much of a problem. I think once we settle, there's going to be no more war in Ukraine, and you're not going to have it's not going to be a very big problem. That's going to be the least of it.
The Greek media reporting that the U.S. has agreed to shut down a military base in Greece that's been a logistical hub for NATO.
That who shut down?
That the U.S. has agreed to shut it down at the request of Turkey and Russia. Is that all true?
Marco, do you have anything to say about it? Chris?
Sir, that's a no, sir.
Mr. President. Is it a no, you said?
It's a no, sir.
It's not a correct story.
Mr. President, how do you react to people in Europe who say that you are abandoning Ukraine and that you are going to sacrifice the security of Ukraine by making a deal with Vladimir Putin?
You know, we're helping Ukraine like nobody's ever helped Ukraine before. And I can say this, if I didn't become president, Ukraine would right now still be at a level where there would be no even thinking about a peace. And it was, it's a sad thing that this happened. This would have never happened, this war, if I were president. Zero chance. And it has happened. So my function is to get you out of the war, get them out of the war, let them live. It's a bloody war, it's a horrible war. Thousands of people are being killed a week. And I would say Russia, maybe 700,000 people. I think Ukraine probably a similar number. And that's not talking about the towns and the cities that have been blown up. That's talking about soldiers. This has been a horrible, bloody mess. And we're going to get it solved. We got to get it solved. And you know, we're not talking about America's soldiers, soldiers from this country. We're talking about Russia and Ukraine. But on a humanitarian basis, we have to get this very, very bloody, savage problem solved. And I will say this also, it could lead to World War III if it's not solved. You know, there'll be a point at which it's not going to stop at those two countries. Already there's such involvement from other countries. And it could really lead to a very big war, World War III, and we're not going to let that happen either.
Would you support the idea to send European troops in Ukraine to back the ceasefire?
European troops may go into Ukraine as peacemakers. So when the agreement is done, they can watch that everything's followed properly. I don't think that's going to be a problem. And a lot of the European countries, I think, I don't want to speak for France, but I know that the presidents talked about doing that also. I think that'll be a very good day when we can go in as peacekeepers as opposed to what's going on right now with everybody being killed.
Will they have U.S. backing, those troops going into Ukraine? Will they have U.S. backing from U.S. troops?
Well, we're going to have a backing of some kind, and obviously the European countries are going to be involved. And I don't think you're going to need much backing. I think that's not going to be a problem. Once an agreement is signed, Russia's going to get back to its business, and Ukraine and Europe are going to get back to their business. I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Mr. President, will you meet President Zelensky soon?
What?
Will you meet with President Zelensky soon?
I will be meeting with President Zelensky. In fact, he may come in this week or next week to sign the agreement, and which would be nice. I'd love to meet him. Would meet at the Oval Office. So the agreement's being worked on now. They're very close to a final deal. It'll be a deal with rare earths and various other things, and he would like to come, as I understand it, here to sign it, and that would be great with me. I think they then have to get it approved by their council or whoever might approve it, but I'm sure that will happen. At some point I'll be meeting with President Putin also, yes. I don't know when we speak. We're trying to get this thing worked out, but yeah, at some point I'll be meeting with President Putin too.
Monsieur Macron, s'il vous plaît, est-ce que vous pouvez me dire quelques mots en français?
Say
I
it.
can say a few words in French. No, le président l'a dit, je pense que c'est un moment important. C'est un moment important de la discussion. On veut bâtir la paix en Ukraine et le bilan qui a été rappelé est une réalité. Il y a d'1 million de morts et de blessés depuis le début de ce conflit et de cette guerre d'agression. Notre volonté, c'est que cette paix dure, parce que nous avons déjà eu un cessez-le-feu et une paix qui n'a pas été respectée. C'était les accords de Minsk, 1 puis 2. Et donc le corps de cette discussion, c'est de s'assurer d'abord qu'il y ait un cessez-le-feu, ensuite que les Ukrainiens soient impliqués. Et je pense que ce que vient de dire à l'instant le président Trump est très important, c'est-à-dire qu'il va rencontrer rapidement le président Zelensky pour signer cet accord sur les minerais critiques et les terres rares, et que c'est aussi un moyen d'avoir une implication américaine forte. Les Européens sont prêts à prendre leur charge sous des formes diverses, de soutien à l'armée ukrainienne, de présence, y compris pour s'assurer que la paix soit durable. Et l'implication dans la durée des États-Unis d'Amérique à travers cet accord est une bonne chose. Et donc tout est encore à construire, et je ne veux pas préempter les discussions. Mais nous partageons le même objectif, et ce qu'on a discuté ce matin pendant 1 heure après la visioconférence ensemble. Est-ce qu'on va continuer de travailler? Et sont pour moi des bonnes avancées. Et l'annonce de...
President Trump has already spoken about this just a moment ago. This is exactly what we want to do. We want to build peace with Ukraine. As President Trump mentioned, there are already 1 million dead and wounded in Ukraine since the war began. We had a ceasefire in the past that was not respected. This was under the Minsk Agreements 1 and 2. President Trump, as he said, will be meeting with President Zelensky to sign a deal on rare earths, and we are pleased to see this very strong American involvement. Europe, of course, also stands ready to support Ukraine in various ways, supporting its military, and we don't want to preempt any sort of discussions that are currently underway, but we do share the same objective of building this lasting peace.
I just want to tell you a little story. So we were at the Eiffel Tower having dinner with your wonderful wife and with my wonderful wife, and we came out and he started speaking the French deal. And we didn't have an interpreter, and he was going on and on and on, and I was just nodding, yes, yes, yes. And he really sold me out, because I got back the next day and I read the papers. I said, that's not what we said. He's a smart customer, I will tell you that. You remember? That wasn't exactly what we agreed to.
Mr. President, to call Zelensky a dictator, would you use the same words regarding Putin?
I don't use those words lightly. I think that we're going to see how it all works out. Let's see what happens. I think we have a chance of a really good settlement between various countries. And, you know, you're talking about Europe, and you're talking about Ukraine as part of that whole situation. The other side has a lot of support also. So let's see how it all works out. It might work out. Look, you can never make up lives. The one thing you can make up the money, but you can't make up the lives. A lot of lives lost. I think probably a lot more lives than people are talking about. It's been a rough war, but I think we're close to getting it solved. Go ahead.
DOGE, sir? Do you think that DOGE could benefit from more streamlined communications? There was that email telling employees to give 5 things that they've done last week. Agency heads then told people to ignore it.
You're talking about the last email that was sent where he wanted to know what you did this week. You know why he wanted that, by the way? I thought it was great. Because we have people that don't show up to work and nobody even knows if they work for the government. So by asking the question, tell us what you did this week, what he's doing is saying, are you actually working? And then if you don't answer, like you're sort of semi-fired or you're fired, because a lot of people are not answering because they don't even exist. They're trying to find, that's how badly various parts of our government were run by, and especially by this last group. So what they're doing is they're trying to find out who's working for the government. Are we paying other people that aren't working? And, you know, where's all that? Where's the money gone? We have found hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud so far, and we've just started. We're actually going to Fort Knox to see if the gold is there, because maybe somebody stole the gold. Tons of gold. So I think it was actually, there was a lot of genius in sending it. We're trying to find out if people are working. And so we're sending a letter to people, please tell us what you did last week. If people don't respond, it's very possible that there is no such person or they're not working.
Some of the agency heads instructed their employees not to respond because they were waiting on further guidance. But Elon Musk's tweet said a failure to respond would be taken as a resignation. So there's been a disconnect in communications.
Yeah.
Are you concerned at all about
Only, no. That was done in a friendly manner. Only things such as perhaps Marco at State Department where they have very confidential things, or the FBI where they're working on confidential things. And they don't mean that in any way combatively with Elon. They're just saying there are some people that you don't want to really have them tell you what they're working on last week. But other than that, I think everyone thought it was a pretty ingenious idea. We have to find out where these people are. Who are they? And we said, if you don't respond, we assume you're not around.
And that holds, that stands.
And you're not getting paid anymore, too. So, you know, we're doing a real job. And we just had a poll come out, I guess the Harvard poll, saying that it's massively popular what we're doing. So,
Mr. President, do you still believe in NATO, in the alliance between Europe and America in NATO?
NATO is very much involved in this. When I first got elected at the very beginning, first term, I got hundreds of billions of dollars put into NATO. NATO had no money. because they hadn't paid for years. And I said, look, if you don't pay, we're not going to be a part of NATO, we're not going to protect, we're not going to do what we're supposed to do. And we took in hundreds of billions of dollars into NATO. No, NATO is a good thing if it's done properly and if it's used properly.
Mr. President, in these days you speak a lot about tariff in Canada, in Mexico, and Europe. I want to know what is your idea about Italy, if you want to make the same thing.
About what? Can you talk up a little louder?
In these days.
No, louder. Can you talk a little louder? You have a beautiful voice, but you're not.
In these days you speak.
Where are you from?
Italy.
From Italy. Oh, I love Italy. Go ahead.
I want to know if you have the same idea with Italy about tariff.
Well, look, I love Italy, and Italy is a very important nation. We have a wonderful woman as your leader, and she was on the conversation today, one that we had, the G7. And no, I think Italy is doing very well. I think Italy's got very strong leadership with Georgia. Any other questions over here? Yes, ma'am.
Can you clarify what you meant in your truth today on the major economic development transactions between the U.S. and Russia? Any more detail?
With respect to what, Russia?
In solving a peace deal, you said there would be major economic development transactions which will take place between the United States and Russia.
Yeah, we're trying to do some economic development deals. They have a lot of things that we want, and we'll see. I mean, I don't know if that will come to fruition, but would love to be able to do that if we could. You know, they have massive rare earth. It's a very large, it's actually the largest in terms of land. It's by far the largest country. And they have very valuable things that we could use, and we have things that they could use, and it would be very good if we could do that. I think it would be a very good thing for world peace and lasting peace. Well, I mean, our first, by far, our first thing that we want to do, the first element of the overall transaction is ending the war. But if, just as we're doing with Ukraine, if we could do some economic development in terms of Russia and getting things that we want, something like that would be possible, yes.
Mr. President.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Can you explain the rationale in having the U.S. vote against the UN resolutions that Ukraine proposed and also the U.S. proposed?
I would rather not explain it now, but it's sort of self-evident, I think.
Mr. President, what about increasing the tariffs on products from the European Union? Is that still something you want to do today?
Well, it's not increasing, it's reciprocal. So whatever they charge us, we're charging them. So it's not a question of increasing. If they charge us 20%, we charge them 20%. If they charge us 30 or 40%, then we do that too. So that would be on European Union, but that really would be with respect to everybody. It's reciprocity. So reciprocal. Whatever they charge us, we charge them. Nobody has a problem. Even you, I see you don't have a problem anymore, right?
Mr. President, are you thinking of going to Moscow soon, maybe in May for the 9th of May for the anniversary?
I mean, not soon, but I would be certainly, if this all gets settled out, which I think it will, sure, I would go there, sure. And he'd come here, too.
On the 9th of May on the Red Square?
I don't know, 9th of May, no, I don't. I think that's pretty soon. But no, at the appropriate time, I would go to Moscow. I think the war could end soon.
How soon?
Within weeks.
Weeks?
Yeah, I think so, right? Don't you think so? I'd like to have you. I think we could end it within weeks if we're smart. If we're not smart, it'll keep going and we'll keep losing young, beautiful people that shouldn't be dying. And we don't want that. And remember what I said, this could escalate into a third world war. And we don't want that either.
Mr. President, your envoy Steve Witkoff suggested a temporary ceasefire in the conflict, but the Russian government has denied that out of hand. Are you worried that they're not dealing in good faith?
No, I think they, at some point, will agree to that. I think they probably wanted to. And I think once you have a ceasefire, it's going to end because they're not going from a ceasefire back to war. I think people have had their full. I'm just glad I was able to help because there was no communication with Russia until I came along. Biden didn't communicate. He couldn't communicate with his own child. So Biden didn't communicate. He couldn't, it was terrible. He hadn't spoken to Putin in 3 years. You're trying to end a war. People are being killed. Every week, thousands of people are being killed. Soldiers, in this case, mostly. Also towns, you know, as missiles go in and back and forth. No, it's a shame. This should have never happened. This is a very sad, this is going to go down in the history books. This is a very sad moment because that should have been stopped. That should have never started. And if it did start, it should have stopped the first week, not 3 years later. Okay?
Je vais répondre, if you allow me, because I had juste, je pense que plusieurs questions de vous et de votre collègue qui ont été posées en français et qui rejoignent les questions posées par les collègues américains. D'abord, cette discussion est utile et construire la paix est une nécessité. La deuxième chose, c'est qu'il y a aujourd'hui une capacité de dissuasion qui est restaurée et que c'est ce que veut dire le président Trump quand il dit qu'il n'y aura plus de problème. Je pense que la force du réengagement américain aujourd'hui, c'est en quelque sorte l'incertitude aussi pour le président Poutine. Et donc il y a une capacité de dissuasion qui est là, qui permet de sceller d'abord sans doute une trêve, la capacité à vérifier que cette trêve est respectée, et ensuite un accord de paix qui permettra de reconstruire l'Ukraine, mais de lui apporter aussi les garanties de sécurité. Dans le cadre de ces garanties de sécurité, nous pensons que nous avons notre rôle à jouer. Et donc, on verra à ce moment-là de la discussion, je ne veux pas la présenter, ce qui est nécessaire pour que l'Ukraine puisse rester un pays souverain. Et d'ailleurs, dans les discussions entre l'Ukraine et les États-Unis d'Amérique, il y a cette question d'une souveraineté ukrainienne qui est respectée. Et donc, nous, ce que nous avons préparé, en particulier avec nos partenaires britanniques, dans le cadre d'un travail très étroit qu'on a mené ces dernières semaines, et partagé avec tous les pays européens et alliés qui sont prêts à s'y joindre, c'est l'idée de dire on est prêt à apporter ces garanties de sécurité. Les conditions, elles doivent en être définies. Elles doivent être définies par l'accord. Ça peut aller jusqu'à l'envoi, comme l'a dit le président, de troupes qui iront observer que la paix est bien respectée, qui iront se positionner, pas sur la ligne de front, pas pour justement, en quelque sorte, être dans le conflit, mais marquer une présence comme une garantie. Il y a d'autres moyens de soutenir qui peuvent être des soutiens accrus et capacitaires à l'armée, des structures nouvelles. Et je pense aussi que l'accord qui est discuté, le président l'a dit, la crédibilité américaine qui est mise dans ce moment, c'est aussi montrer que chacun est dans son rôle, mais que nous avons une unité, Européens et Américains, et donc avec une forme de garantie que les Américains prennent par la discussion sur les minerais critiques qui sont en train de finaliser.
By the way, that is the most beautiful language. I have no idea what he's saying, but that is the most elegant, beautiful language. Go ahead, please.
This is a question that was asked by several. What we need to do is make sure that we are building peace. We have deterrence capabilities that have been restored. As President Trump said, there won't be any more problems. We've seen the U.S. re-engagement and the message that that sends to Mr. Putin. We have deterrence, which will allow a truce to take place, verification of that truce, and then a peace agreement can be put in place so that we can start rebuilding Ukraine with security guarantees. And we have a role to play in that. Again, I'm not preempting any discussions, but we've spoken about Ukraine's sovereignty, and that has been a subject of discussion between the U.S. and Ukraine. We have also been working closely with our British partners this week. We've shared this information with other European countries, and we are ready and willing to provide those security guarantees, which could perhaps include troops, but they would be there to maintain peace. They would not be along the front lines. They would not be part of any conflict. They would be there to ensure that the peace is respected. Our assistance may include other capacity building, perhaps for the military. We see U.S. credibility here. We each have our role to play, but it will be done in a united fashion.
Mr. President, do you think that Ukraine should give up a part of its territory?
Well, we're going to see. It's a negotiation that's just starting, and you know they've been fighting, and there's been a lot of land that's been taken. So we'll have to see how that works out. That's part of the negotiation. I will say there was great unity in that room today. You know, we were via Skype or whatever, but it was great, tremendous unity today in that room with the other countries. I was very impressed by it.
Territories back, can they take it back? What they lost in the past years?
That's not an easy thing to do, is it, right? It's not an easy, you know, he's asking whether or not you can take back the land that they lost. And I say that, yeah, perhaps some of it, yeah, I hope so. But that's not an easy thing to do.
But not everything.
It's going to be something we're talking about.
Will you convince Vladimir Putin to accept the European troops as peacekeeper, would you think?
Yeah, he will accept that.
He will accept
I've asked him that question.
You talked to him?
I've asked him that question.
Is France going to lift the block on the?
Because he's not, look, if we do this deal, he's not looking for more war. He doesn't mind, but I've specifically asked him that question. He has no problem with it.
Is France going to lift the block on the $300 billion in frozen Russian assets in Belgium? France has opposed unfreezing it to pay Ukraine and compensate the U.S. for its support. Is France going to lift its opposition to that?
This is, I mean, we speak about frozen assets. We already used them to back precisely the loans negotiated at the G7. And it's part of the sanctions, so it will depend on the follow-up of the discussions. But clearly, we respect international law. It's just frozen assets now. You can take the proceeds of the frozen assets, but you cannot take the assets themselves because it's not respecting international law, and we want to respect international law.
How is one different than the other? If you can take the proceeds from it, how can you not?
Because it's very different. You keep the assets, you take the proceeds because they are paralyzed in a certain way. You take the proceeds during the wartime, but you keep the assets, and it's part of the negotiation at the end of the war. Because, I mean, this war costed all of us a lot of money. And this is the responsibility of Russia, because the aggressor is Russia. So at the end of the day, this frozen asset should be part of the negotiation, all in all.
Will France support the U.S. being compensated?
I support the idea to have Ukraine first being compensated, because they are the ones to have lose a lot of their fellow citizens and being destroyed by these attacks. Second, all of those who paid for could be compensated, but not by Ukraine, by Russia, because they were the one to aggress.
Again, just so you understand, Europe is loaning the money to Ukraine. They get their money back.
No, in fact, to be frank, we paid 60% of the total effort, and it was through, like the US, loans, guarantee, grants, and we provided real money, to be clear. Okay. We have 230 billion frozen assets in Europe, Russian assets, but this is not as a collateral of a loan, because this is not our belonging. So they are frozen. If at the end of the day, in the negotiation we will have with Russia, they're ready to give it to us, super. It will be loan at the end of the day, and Russia will have paid for that.
If you believe that, it's okay with me. But they get their money back, we don't, and now we do. But, you know, that's only fair.
So you think Russia should be the one that pays everybody back? Are they the aggressor?
Well, we're negotiating everything, and everything's on the table, and we'll see if we can get some land back, and we'll see about a lot of different things. And we're going to be making a little speech and say a few words in a little while. We're going to have another meeting, a luncheon meeting, and we'll see you in about 2 hours. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Press.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. All right, head out this door right here,
Hey, Doug.
Right here. Hello. Moving out. Moving out. Head out, Press. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Straight out.
Emmanuel Macron est venu demander à Donald Trump